remind you and be clear for those that have these questions and concerns that these deaths are based on what a physician has documented in the death certificate that lists COVID as among the chain of events leading to the person's death and a contributing factor. And so while elderly and while having a morbidity or underlying health condition also put him at higher risk, it was, I would say, a very untimely, unfortunate, and premature death at that, that these individuals are no longer with us because of the infection contributed to their death. So next slide, please. Those are our numbers for today. So back to the...
Can I ask you a question on the deaths? I've been asked about the clarification of what is considered a COVID-19 death. If someone commits suicide, but they tested positive for COVID-19, it's still considered a COVID-19 death? Or if someone's tested positive for COVID-19 and the flu, is it still COVID-19 death? Or is it someone who's had congenital heart disease for a very long time and they were unfortunate to get COVID-19? It's still considered a COVID-19 death. Who decides what's considered a death or not? As it relates to COVID-19?
Yeah, it's a good question. We get that question a lot. We, local health departments are under strict guidance from CDC and the California Department of Public Health on classifying these deaths, and they're verified. What we report to the state reviews the numbers, and they then report those numbers for the statewide reporting. And so people obviously can die of and have multiple comorbidities, multiple underlying health conditions that led to their death. But if that death, that person that died was positive for COVID, that is counted as a COVID-related death. That doesn't mean that that's the only reason why they died, but they were positive for COVID when they died. And so that is the count. And so that doesn't mean that that person didn't have another health condition, but they were confirmed as positive for COVID. And again, this is in accordance with state and federal guidelines.
And so the other question I get a lot of is our death rate currently in the county more or less than it was last year? And I know you don't have that data, but maybe at some other time it would be good for us to understand that because those are questions our community has.
Yeah, so I can get some more data in terms of what deaths we had up to this point last year, but I know that our almost 20 deaths that we've had for COVID is higher than our average annual for flu.
Thank you. It's just information that I'm not sure what we're doing with it, but it's just good information statistically. I feel it gives us reassurance that we're doing the right things. Yep. One death is more than we want.
Countries that if you had a pre-existing condition, and let's say the virus caused you to go to the ICU and then have a heart or kidney problem. Some countries are recording that as a heart issue or a kidney issue and not a COVID-19 death. Right now, we're still recording it, and the great thing about having forms that come in and a form that has the ability to mark it as COVID-19 infection, the intent is right now that if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that.
The definition of people dying of COVID. So the case definition is very simplistic. It means at the time of death, it was a COVID positive diagnosis. So that means that if you were in hospice and had already been given, a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death. It means that even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. So everyone who's listed as a COVID death doesn't mean that that was the cause of the death, but they had COVID at the time of death. I hope that's helpful.
On what a physician has documented in the death certificate that lists COVID as among the chain of events leading to the person's death and a contributing factor. And so while